Put 'em up.
Oh!
So, I was watching Deadwood recently.
Okay.
And what an amazing show to just kind of fall apart in 3 seasons. Have you watched Deadwood at all?
I haven't, and mostly because of the fact that the name makes me think of an impotent man. But you can just ignore that for the time being. I know it's a Western, right?
It's a Western.
Okay.
Yeah, it's with Timothy Olyphant in it.
Oh, that's why you're obsessed with it.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I'm doing a whole thing where I'm kind of obsessed with Timothy Olyphant, but in this, it was so great in that first season, and because it really felt like this Western. Deadwood's a real place.
Okay.
There's a real place called Deadwood, and it's the story of how this little settlement started and turned into a town, and it was based off of wanting to be away from all the laws that were being put into place in the country. Our country was just forming, and all these people, the Pinkertons. That's this whole thing. It follows there's a society called the Pinkertons which still exists today. I just feel like...
Well, it's a company. It's not a society.
Yeah, they're what is it called? It's the detective agency, and now they're under a different name, but they still exist all these years. I just think it's really crazy that there's this part of our history where it was kind of like Wild West, and I kind of want to know a little bit more about it.
Okay, so let's talk about
Wild West.
Wild West.
I did it. I whistled.
Good job. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nick Drago.
And I'm Jamie Grum.
And thanks for joining us for another exciting episode of Big Spoon.
Little Spoon.
Although usually it's the opposite. You're the
big
spoon,
spoon,
and I'm the little spoon.
I mean, that wouldn't really make sense.
So,
Depends how we would spoon.
So, we're filming, our newest batch of episodes today, right?
Yes.
My mother-in-law told me the other day that when she heard our name, she thought everyone was just going to assume we were gay. So... okay. Yep. There you go. Okay.
That's
so
for you, Mrs. Drago.
my mother-in-law. So
mother-in-law.
Hannah's mom. It's fine. We're good. No worries.
I didn't catch that one.
It's good. Anyway, so for those of you who have never joined us here before, we pick a random topic out of a hat. We have no idea what that topic's going to be until it is pulled just before we start filming. And then we talk about it. So today's topic, Jamie, is...
Wild West.
We're going to do finger guns the whole show, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe.
So tell me more about this man whose dick doesn't work. Come on. Think of the name of the show. They could have come up with something better.
No, this is one of the names we should have put inside of the weird town names.
Weird town names. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Tell me about the show.
Yeah, it's about, it kind of starts off with, Timothy Olyphant, as you would expect, and he's this, sheriff, and he's about to leave town. He wants to just open up a regular shop in this new up-and-coming town called Deadwood. And he goes there, and he tries to forget that he ever was a sheriff, but of course that past drags him right back into it as the government's trying to come into this town and turn it into an actual town of laws, and... that's just kind of the basis of it. There's a lot of, horrible stuff that happens in it, and it's kind of the Wild West of, the Game of Thrones world. It's just... but they killed the show, and there's a movie now, which... it's okay, but just doesn't have the same feel as the show did.
Well, the going back to the plot of the show, it's fairly accurate as what was going on at that time, right?
Yeah.
So... we had the Louisiana Purchase, right? We bought all that land from Napoleon, and that got us basically up until the area that you would now consider today the Wild West. So we already colonized most of that. Now all of a sudden we start claiming all of this land. It really wasn't owned by anybody. I mean, part of it we got from the Spanish.
Yeah.
Like Texas and Oklahoma and all that. Although Texas was its own country.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it we just sort of like moved our troops in. Manifest destiny. We're working our way across the country here, and so a lot of it's just dead open land, and people like Timothy Olyphant's character. What's the character's name in the show?
Oh my gosh, it's been a little bit since I remember watching it. I'm really bad with names. I just remember Al Swearingen was like
Al Swearingen.
Not he wasn't Al Swearingen.
That's the name of a character.
That's the name of a character.
Okay, come on. Deadwood. That's the guy with Deadwood. Al Swearingen
in the movie.
Okay, so anyway, people like that who are looking for a fresh start, a new life, whatever it may be, are moving their way west.
Yeah.
The other thing you have now, have you ever seen the show Hell on Wheels?
No, what is that?
Okay, similar idea. Hell on Wheels. I want to say it was on AMC maybe around the same time that Breaking Bad was out. So we're going back a couple of years here.
Because it does sound familiar.
So the topic of the show. So we had all this territory out west, California, and the West Coast. We had all this territory out east, but we needed to unite the two. And so a few different train companies were creating this transatlantic railroad, right? That would transcontinental railroad that would get us from one end to the other.
Exactly.
And so they started on both sides, worked their way to the middle. What would happen is you'd get far enough out from a town that you'd need to establish a new settlement there. And so a lot of people working these were former slaves or folks that were brought over from Asia. Mm-hmm. A lot of Chinese, because they had a mastery of dynamite at the time, was part of the reason. It was also cheap labor. And so they brought these people over. They lived in these little towns, communities. Yeah. And so in the show, the name of that community is Hell on Wheels. Why, I have no idea.
Now that would be an interesting watch.
So it starts off, if I recall, I watched like the first 3 seasons, I think. The first season, Hell on Wheels is basically like a tent community. And by like the second, third seasons, all of a sudden, like, yes, some people are living in tents, but now some folks who've made a little bit extra money or started opening up shops, like what you're saying in Deadwood.
And that's what you see in Deadwood.
It starts building into this little town.
Yeah.
Whereas, in Europe, this concept doesn't really exist because the towns that you see in Europe have been there for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, so they just started growing out instead of having to connect all of this land. We have a lot of space in America, a lot of space that's just wide and open.
Yeah.
And so before that even started, we were doing, it's like the Oregon Trail.
Well, the Oregon Trail would have been around this same era because we were trying to fill out that land.
Exactly, but it started off with just like your carriage wagons. Like, we had trains, but a lot of it was really like...
Whatever you have, you take it west.
Whatever you have.
Well, what they used to do after the Civil War ended, they promised how many acres of land and a mule, right, to every freed slave. They were trying to get people to move out west at any chance they could, and so people could start building farms and whatnot. To this day, when you go out west, right, you might go to, let's say Phoenix, because I've spent a good amount of time there, right? You have the city of Phoenix.
Scorpion.
You have the surrounding towns. Yeah, we have a friend who lives out there who's the real expert. So you have the city of Phoenix, surrounding towns, cities, and then it's just vast emptiness. It could be miles. It could be an hour's worth of driving.
It's the same way with like Nevada too.
Yeah.
And it's just
there's nothing there.
Death Valley, and it's just nothing.
Well, they can't build in Death Valley. It's too friggin' hot there.
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just killer.
So it's essentially you have all this open space. You have people looking to make their way out there and build their farms and whatnot. And you had very little to no police presence at the time. So people could get away with whatever they wanted.
Yeah, so, and this is just my understanding from it, so this is one of the things I'd like to research, is like, if you killed someone over some dispute, it's kind of like, I guess slap in the wrist in most of these places, like, I killed my brother because we had some sort of argument, and they're like, well, did he draw on you? Yeah. Oh, well then you're good, have a great day.
Yeah, there's no forensic evidence or anything like
None
that.
of that. None of that.
The other thing to keep in mind is when we think of the Wild West, we think of cowboys and Indians and a whole lot of death and killing and whatnot. And that's not really true. Yes, there were outlaws, but realistically, that's all that was the recorded history of the time. So that's what we know about the Wild West. But really, there's so few and far between cases that, not every city had
not a lot was
the
recorded.
OK Corral going on.
Yeah.
So what you see in movies, the violence you see in movies and whatnot, that's all. That's
of course is
it's all Hollywood.
dramatized.
Yeah. That it wasn't as dangerous as a place as you may think. So when I think about the West, I like to think about Texas.
Yeah.
Right. Texas is really like the
Lone Star State.
the epitome for the Wild West. Do you know why it's the Lone Star State?
Nine.
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. So when Texas came about, right? Texas won its independence from Spain. The people who lived in Texas were mostly Americans. There were a lot of Americans and some Spanish that lived there. And so Texas seceded from Spain, became its own country. And at that time, there were so many Americans there that people in the U.S. assumed that at some point in time, Texas would become a state, which it did.
Yeah.
Right? And so even after it became a state, they were called the Lone Star State because they claimed to be the only state that was an independent nation. It's not fully true. But...
And it's funny how now the talks are about like will Texas split one?
No. No, Texas... So it's actually illegal for any state to secede from the Union. After World War II... wow. Oh, wow.
Oh.
After the Civil War...
Yeah.
Right, the guidelines are pretty strict. So the state can't just say, hey, I'm done, goodbye. Texas, though, does have a clause in which, if it feels like, it can split itself up into, I want to say, 5 or 6 smaller states. Of course, why would you do...
What does that do?
Well, more Republicans... Texas is mostly a Republican state, right? So if you really wanted to do it for political power, you could for your party. But realistically, that'll never happen.
All right.
Texas is too big.
Yeah.
There's way too many people there. It makes sense for it to stay one state. And Texas is like the epitome of American culture right there. There's no way they're ever going to split. I'm sorry, Texas secession fans. I know there are some of you out there. And listen, if you are interested in Texas seceding and want to talk about this more, email us. wehateforks@gmail.com. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think about when you think about the Wild West?
So it's funny because in the show, you see a little bit about it. I'm also playing Red Dead Redemption.
Such a good game.
No, Red Dead Redemption 2 is what I'm playing now.
Yeah, is it good? I had the first one.
It's good. It's not like how you would expect, because Red Dead 1 was following John Marston, and like he was trying to get away from his past, which was, being part of like a gang of bandits, right? This one follows the gang of bandits he was in, and a character that's in there. He wasn't mentioned in the first game.
You're talking about the plot.
The plot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, totally different. But at the same time, I feel like they really did a good job with kind of making the atmosphere of this game. Because, like, you go into one of those towns, there's one that literally I feel like they designed to be just like what Deadwood looks like. There's even, like, certain...
Did they do that on purpose?
I think they did it on purpose.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Because there's 2 things in Deadwood. There was, like, a main saloon that people would hang out in, and that would be, like, Al Swearengen's place. So that's the guy, he had his own place.
Oh, Al.
But then there was also this, like, little, like, tiny bar in the corner somewhere else that didn't get a lot of business, but it was just some people still went there. And that's in there, too. But you walk in, you see, like, all the NPCs, like, moving things and helping build this town in this game. It's so wild. And you're just playing a bandit.
Yeah.
But that's what I think about of the Wild West is, bandits, but also, this is a time where, we were coming in and taking all this land, and we're taking a lot of it from the Indians. Or Native Americans, rather.
That's very true. There are a lot of...
there was a lot of, not like, I guess, animosity towards each of these groups, like people trying to come out and settle these lands on land that, was someone else's beforehand. And a lot of these Native American tribes were pretty violent in that case. But I think there was, both sides were fighting with each other. So that's what I think about the Wild West.
No, absolutely. I mean, you had tons of, people forget about, there are a lot of wars in the United States that people forget about. And most of them took place on U.S. soil. Wars between the U.S. government and certain native tribes. And so those were some pretty bloody conflicts. And a lot of them ending with, those tribes being taken from their land and sent elsewhere, whether it be, integration into our society, or they're given their own land while we kick them off of the sacred ground they lived on for thousands of years, and we put them into a what is the name?
Reservations.
Yes, into reservations. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you for thinking of what I was thinking about. So yeah, I mean, in that regard, there was, there were a lot of tribes that wanted to be a part of the U.S. and people who fought. Men from these tribes who fought for and against the U.S. during some of our wars. You think about the French and Indian War. We're going back a ways here.
We should bring up the one movie, The Last of the Mohicans.
I haven't seen that one.
That's I remember watching that a long time ago. But that's a really good film. Again, it's not exactly what happened because it's a movie, but it's it's nice to kind of see something that tries to portray it.
Yeah. The one thing, it's what stinks about the Wild West is so little medical care.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. You get bit by a rattlesnake, scorpions, bears out there. Like you're screwed.
Toast. Yeah.
You're screwed.
And the thing about these small towns too was if there was ever an illness, like that went around like a plague, and it would decimate them. I mean, we had, there was a smallpox. Do you remember hearing stories about smallpox going around? And, we had our own plagues here. Like, the Black Plague in Europe. Like, it's so the healthcare system, there was none, but it would be the one doctor that was in town running back and forth, and that's another thing in Deadwood. There's a doctor, the one doctor, and the guy runs himself into the ground because he's trying to help not only just like people who hurt themselves or get sick, but like also the prostitutes.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is a thing that would happen. I would love to learn if like whatever we can about the Wild West, but there were prostitutes back then too.
Well, it's a shame. I mean, nowadays the best. What we know about the Wild West is stuff we've seen in movies.
Yeah.
Which at best they're approximations. They're guesses. There's not much to go off of. We're talking about 150 or so years ago at this point. And so there's just not much. I don't know.
I mean, so I was talking about in the beginning with like the Pinkerton Agency.
Yeah.
And they're still around. Like they have some history with that because a lot of the Pinkerton Agency is not like they were called like Pinkertons, right, when they would come into town, but they were hired out by people who actually had wealth and power to kind of do their bidding, to be like their henchmen. So it was like they're the detective agency. You would think that they would be like this national like police squad or whatever, going around and trying to like help, but really what it was about was someone had a lot of money and a lot of power, wanted to come in and control how things were done in one of these new towns. They would use the Pinkertons to kind of roughhouse them.
They're hired muscle.
Hired muscle, yes.
Actually, the Pinkertons played a big role in unionization in the United States.
Yeah.
And so the story, I don't remember the full story, we'd have to look this up, but way back when the Carnegie Company, right, Carnegie Steel out in Pittsburgh.
Yes, exactly.
There was a big dispute with its workers. The workers literally went on strike, revolted, and Carnegie called the Pinkertons to come in and settle the revolt.
Exactly.
And it turned out to be pretty dang bloody.
And that's one thing too, is they would control voting too. And they would go down to voting places and be like, you're going to vote how we want you to vote because otherwise you're in deep shit.
So in other words, they would intimidate.
Intimidate and threaten and just.
So that's how a lot of, I guess, local lawmen stayed in power. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were and it's because they stopped unions from forming.
So the Pinkertons now, I think, is
they have a totally different name. I'd have to find
well,
out.
They were bought out by somebody, and I don't remember who. But they're basically like a private. I think they were selling themselves as like a private eye, but it's almost like a they almost kind of do the same thing.
It's pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah. Except much more subversive.
One thing that I think is really crazy is, I don't know if they did that with Deadwood, because the Pinkertons are talked a lot about in there, but in Red Dead Redemption they have the Pinkertons in that too, and the Pinkertons, whatever they are now, filed a cease and desist.
On the video game, so they can't be the video game.
So they can't use the Pinkertons because they're painting them in a bad light.
Yeah, that's okay.
And it's like, that's history, and that's what they said. Rockstar was like, this is history and freedom of speech, y'all.
So they didn't do anything about it?
No way. Yeah, they're gonna fight it. Because think about it, that is our history, and they're trying to block out what our history was, even though who knows exactly what it is. Just like the Pinkertons existed, and we're gonna put them in our video games.
I mean, you're gonna see examples of that as we move forward in life. You're gonna see more and more examples of people trying to erase our history than ever before. I mean, we could talk all day if we wanted to about the statues down south. That's a topic. Confederate statues or just erasing history. Let's say erasing history, because we could literally do a whole episode on that.
We, Nick and I, and our wives, before you were married, but we went to Savannah, Georgia for a week, and we went and checked out all the history there. Even like the ghost tours followed the statues, and ghost tours are like. That's scared. The poop out of me again. It keeps getting me.
I know.
It's funny how I was talking about ghost tours like. But a lot of the ghost tours are really just for history. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
But the statues there, a lot of them are definitely like Confederate soldiers. But the thing about the Confederacy was, like, even though they stood for, they weren't like the best of all sides to be with, but they still did try and protect their people. You know what I mean? It's still, I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of those officers did okay things.
Yeah, I think there are people who were well-meaning people. You have to think most of the soldiers didn't own slaves. It was the wealthy landowners that did.
Yeah, yes.
You know, anybody who owned like a big farm or a plantation or something, they definitely had slaves working for them. But I would venture a guess that most of the folks, and slavery was not the only reason that the Civil War broke out. It was a big one, don't get me wrong. But I think we focus way too much on that nowadays.
On the slavery?
And it's because of that, part of our history is getting swept under the rug or whatever it may be. And
so some of those statues that we saw, I think, were removed.
I don't know the specific ones that we saw, if they were removed or not. But a lot of statues in big cities are being removed. The Alabama State flag.
Our history.
The Alabama State flag used to be the Confederate flag. A lot of the Southern flags have the
Confederate,
the stars and bars.
Yeah.
Which is actually that's not the flag of the Confederacy. Mm-hmm. It was like a battle flag that they would use, that certain battalions would use. Either way, we've gotten way off topic.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what we know about the West comes from movies and whatnot that we've seen nowadays. So let's talk about some of the old timey Western movies, because I love old movies. And earlier you were whistling the tune to my all-time favorite Western, which is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah. Right? Clint Eastwood. So do you know what they call those types of Westerns?
I don't. What are they called?
They're called spaghetti westerns. Do you know why?
Spaghetti westerns?
They are filmed in Italy.
Uh-huh. Are you serious?
It's all Italian actors, except for, like, the main actors.
Really?
Yep. It's all directed by Italians. Wow. The guy who wrote that song, his name is Ennio Morricone. He's an Italian composer.
Wow.
Spaghetti westerns.
So why did they do that? Why did they film them over there?
Super cheap.
Wow.
Yeah. cheap movies to make. The Italian landscape, in certain parts looks similar enough to the Wild West.
And we don't really have that nowadays because
we have tons of that nowadays.
No. I'm talking about that landscape we still have out there. But, So why didn't we just film here? We had to go overseas to film in Italy.
Again, it probably cost them so little. So it's not that we went overseas. They already had all the cameras and stuff. Yeah. Clint Eastwood was a no-name actor. John Wayne was a no-name actor. So just a lot of those early Westerns, they were just, that's how they were made.
Yeah.
And so that's usually where my mind goes when I think of some of these older, like, Western movies is Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Actually, that's the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the third movie in a trilogy, believe it or not.
I need to start watching these.
So it's 3 movies, all with Clint Eastwood. The plot's basically the same. He's a quiet dude in a poncho, shows up in a town, some shit goes on, and then he kills people. And that's basically it.
So your character development is still, like...
non-existent.
I just kill people and then put my poncho back on.
That's basically it. I mean, is that... Clint Eastwood, all of his movies, there's very little character development. He's just a bad.
I just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
But I'll kill people if they don't leave me alone.
There you go. That's basically it. But
what's the one that he's in now where he's like a smuggler?
The Mule.
The Mule?
I haven't seen that one yet. Is it out? I don't even know.
I don't know if it's out or not.
I just saw something about it today.
I just want to deliver my drugs and leave me alone.
Well, it's funny when you say that. What's the movie Gran Torino? I think about, right?
I just want to have my cancer. Leave me alone.
I'm sorry, Clint. I love your movies.
We'll leave you alone.
We'll leave you alone. I promise. We'll leave you alone. I was watching. What was the movie? They did a remake of The Magnificent Seven. Old Western film, right? I watched the remake. It's got, like, Denzel, and it's got Chris Pratt's in it.
What? Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes.
It was an okay movie.
Okay. I need to see that. I need to see it.
Yeah, okay, watch it. So, there's one thing that really bothered me about this movie. Is that there's tons of explosions, and there's gunfight going on and all this stuff, right? Not a single horse in the movie is injured. Actor gets shot off the horse. I don't want it to get injured, but it took me out of the movie.
Are you condoning horse violence?
I am. Horse on horse violence. I'm into it. Get Michael Vick on that.
Just a bunch of hooves, like...
That's my sugar cube! Get away from it! I'm imagining like these horses like shooting them up with horse testosterone.
Just like really beefy, like like what like a pit bull looks like when he's just like walking around like with his muscles, but it's a horse instead.
All right, bring out Bubba. Goosh, goosh, goosh. Ooh, that's a stallion noise right there.
What the?
Oh yeah. Ooh. Damn, boy.
I'm a stallion.
So yeah, not a single horse gets hurt. And no, I don't want to see the horses get hurt, but like...
Yeah, you want to see a horse get hurt, man. Okay, I know, I understand. Like, in actuality, like, a lot of these horses...
That horse would be losing 2 legs right now. Instead, it's almost comical. Like, the explosion happens...
But that one beefy one would be like this, like...
So the guy gets thrown off the horse, right? The horse goes down, explosion, right? The guy goes.
The horse fell down.
Like barbecued, and the horse just pops up and just like trots away into the away from the battlefield.
Isn't this supposed to be kind of like a funny movie?
No.
Chris Pratt's in it.
He doesn't do comedies anymore. He's all action. He just makes funny lines.
So did he make funny lines?
He had 1 or 2.
Okay, so is this film?
It's not meant to be a comedy.
It's not, but it's just action.
He's funny. He's funny in a way that.
Okay, so even though it's an action film, that probably was planned to be like, and then the horse.
Well, absolutely.
They're probably like, and then what's really cool is that the horse just gets up and runs away.
But it's not just that one horse. It's there's literally like at least 100 horses that do not get hurt. Like people are getting shot off of their horses, and the horse is just like, it's trotting along, bam, guys get shot off, and the horse just like stops and walks away.
Nick's gonna be the guy whenever they do like screening, and they're just like, "So what'd you guys think?" And you're like, "Excuse me, I didn't see any dead horses." And they're just, what?
The horses didn't die.
So if we kill the horse, you'd watch this movie?
Oh, shut up and take my money now. I don't know. It took me out of the movie.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
All right. More dead horses. Hashtag more dead horses. Sorry.
The other thing that I feel like we don't think about is how close this time period is to the modern era. I wouldn't consider it that, but so...
so the Wild West era was like the 1800s, right? 1700? Or no, it's kind of 1800s.
I would say like mid to late
1800s. Yeah.
So, for example, let's say Wyatt Earp. There's one of the Wyatt Earp movies.
Mm-hmm.
Ends with him. Do you know who Wyatt Earp is?
Nope.
This is a true story.
Oh,
He's a true lawman, sheriff,
horse.
Way back when. He's a horse. He's big muscled out horse named Bubba.
My name's Howard.
Wyatt Earp was he was just I believe he was a sheriff. Mm. You know, he had his own little like gang that he had with him, including Doc Holliday, who had the consumption, so he's always coughing up blood.
Oh.
I know, it's just part of the movie. These are the little tidbits I remember. But have you ever heard of the OK Corral?
Yes.
Okay, famous gunfight. Mm-hmm. That was him. That was his group. They were taking out a group of outlaws at the OK Corral. And this was down in Tombstone, Arizona. Tucson, like that whole lower part of Arizona. Anyway, one of the movies, and it's not the good one. There's like a good one, and there's a lot of bad ones. And there's a TV show, which was really good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the bad movie ends with him like on an Alaskan cruise almost. Like they're on a boat going to Alaska, and it's like 1938 or something. And he's an old man. And like, you have to think about that. Like, that's a totally different era than we think about with the Wild West. But if something, let's say you were 20 years old. It's 1870.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're 20 years old.
Yeah.
By the time you're 80, you're talking like 1920s. Like World War I's already gone on.
So much has changed.
Exactly. The whole world is completely different.
Wow.
We don't think about how entwined these things are.
So much innovation was happening during that time because the Wild West is happening, and you have New York City with skyscrapers going on at the same time.
Just about.
Yeah, well, not like but you had
20 stories or more is considered a skyscraper way back.
Okay, so but they had that going on, and in Deadwood they mentioned like going back to New York.
Yeah.
Or Cheyenne.
Trains and cars were in existence. You even see one. I believe you see one in the first Red Dead video game. Is cars, but that same time period,
they're pulling it off of
That same time period too. You have professional football and baseball have been going on for years at this point.
Yeah.
It's the New York Giants were an actual football team.
It's you got your first world, well, not first world country, but I mean, we're pretty much the modern world going on. And you got these small settlements, we were talking about that before, where there's not a lot of resources. They have to get these trains going and pull it all out.
Yeah.
So it's all about what you can carry, and because you can't carry all that much.
Yeah. They're like two different cultures.
Starting from two totally different cultures.
Totally different cultures. All right. I think that's a good time to take a break.
Yeah, so let's do some research and see what we come back with, and learn a little bit more about the Wild West.
Cool beans. Stick with us, friends. Not sports. Oh my god, that's my other show. Big Spoon, Little Spoon. We'll be right back.
See you soon.
Hi, friends. I'm Nick Drago, host of Sports with Nick Drago. Are you looking for a podcast that's going to give you all the sports news and information and just have a lot of fun doing it? Well, this might be the one for you. Sports with Nick Drago. We're on every Sunday, and you can find us on Facebook, SoundCloud, Twitter, and the YouTube. Just type in Sports with Nick Drago. That's me. We'll talk all about some sports. We'll have a little fun, maybe some laughs. You know how it goes. You can find us wherever
like to listen to your podcasts.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. Done a little research. Finger guns. Finger guns. Giant muscular horses. What did you find, Jamie? I found some cool stuff.
I found some cool stuff too,
Okay.
and pardon my my researching is not all that great, so a lot of my stuff comes from Wiki. If you ever look at Wiki or for anything, just take it with a grain of salt. But still some useful info on there.
Okay.
So I started off with Deadwood. So let me just go before because I forgot. But Timothy Olyphant's character is Seth Bullock, and he plays the guy there that he's the sheriff in the town. But Deadwood, it's a real place, and so on here, let me just bring it up on my phone real quick. It's a city in South Dakota known for its gold rush history. That's another thing that was happening. As a lot of people are going there to go into the mountains and try and grab all the gold from the rivers.
So wait, does the show take place then in South Dakota?
In South Dakota, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a real town there. And this is a place where people like Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane, they're actually buried there. There's a cemetery that has their plots.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's another thing. A lot of these people, like Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane, all these were famous figures, and a lot of what they did, they were folk heroes. So it was all made up.
Yeah.
A lot of it was made up. But they are apparently these famous gunslingers. I'm looking at the list here, and this is where I found that out. For Wild Bill Hickok, they just list off all these things that apparently he just did.
How do you say his name? It really is Hickok, huh? I always thought it was Hiccup.
James Butler Hickok.
I always thought it was Hiccup.
Hiccup. Wild Bill Hickok.
Well, it's funny you say that. So the stories you do here, a lot of those sensationalized stories, there's one famous group of bank robbers who their stories are true, and it's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And the reason their stories aren't made up is because they were so freaking crazy for doing some of the things they did.
Yeah.
That that's all we think about now when we think about crazy bank heists.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you're robbing a bank, what's going to happen is in the town nowadays it's probably a little easier, but in the town, your bank, your police, your jailers, everything is right next to each other.
Yep.
You only have one door to get in and out. So what's going to happen? You're going to go into the bank, hold them up. The sheriff is probably the next door over.
Oh, hey, look at that, a robbery.
Yeah. By the time you get everything out of there, if you fire your gun once, he's going to be waiting for you at the door with a shotgun ready to go.
Yep.
So bank heists, believe it or not, we think about these bank heists that were going on at the time. Mm-hmm. Here we go. I have the stat right here. Okay. In the 40 years that we would consider Wild West time, right? And what are the specific 40 years? Does it say here? Doesn't really say. Either way, in that time, there were 8 recorded bank heists.
That's it.
That's it. Do you know how many bank robberies were recorded in 2010?
I don't know.
5,600. So just like how
does this happen?
Just like how there's more pirates in the world today than there were during the age of piracy, there's more bank robberies going on today than there were in the age of bank robberies.
Where are these happening?
I have no idea.
So there's always names for these people, the pirates, they're on the ocean or anything, but it's all these bandits that were going on back then in the West, they were called, and I love this, I think it's the funniest thing ever.
This is a real term that you found here?
Yeah. The banditti of the prairie, also known as
Pirate
prairie, or prairie pirates.
It was just okay, so it was a group of different outlaw gangs.
Yeah.
That it looks like it was parts of Illinois that they would go
and Wild Bill Hickok was part of that.
It was like a criminal syndicate.
Yeah.
They called themselves the banditti of the prairies.
Yeah, or just prairie pirates.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
But now this brings into the next topic, which is the Pinkertons.
Yeah.
So, and we were talking a little bit about them before. And so they are still around, like we were saying before. They are now part of a private security guard. Well, they are, but now they're part of Securitas AB. And so Pinkerton, who, this guy Alan Pinkerton, was actually Scotsman Alan Pinkerton, who created it in 1850. Apparently it is recorded that he had foiled a plot to assassinate President-elect Abraham Lincoln, so before he actually was assassinated, and because of that, Abraham Lincoln hired the Pinkertons.
Okay, so wait, he foiled
as
the plot, and so Abe Lincoln was like, "Hey, you figured this out.
Yeah,
you figure out how to keep me safe."
Exactly.
I like that.
It's kind of cool.
Okay.
But then other people were like, "And now I have money," and this agency started to grow.
Listen, it's money talks, you know.
Money talks.
So the strike I was talking about is called the Homestead Strike.
Yeah.
And there were anywhere from about 6,000 people were involved. There were only about 10 deaths, right? 7 on one side and 3 on the other. And just a couple of injuries. But it all took place between January 1st and November 20th in 1892. So quite a long strike. And it took place in Homestead, Pennsylvania, which is where the Carnegie factory was at the time. So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
Let me see. I think we are good. I wanted to show you guys the actual logo of the Pinkertons.
I don't know if I'll be able to see that. But
Can I pull? Let me see.
get up really close. Oh, isn't that cute?
Oh, what? It's going to be backwards.
For those of you, it's fine. For those of you watching our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that. For those of you,
it's basically an eye.
It's an eyeball.
It's an eyeball.
It's an eyeball, and it looks like it's looking at something. Like that's its field of vision.
Oh, yeah. It's like, what's down there?
Totally. The only other thing I had was Wyatt Earp, who died in 1929.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear about him.
Well, that was basically it. So he was a frontiersman.
Mm-hmm.
He was a sheriff. He helped take down all these outlaw gangs, right? 1929 when he died. The movie I was thinking about was called Tombstone. I'm pretty sure that's the bad Wyatt Earp movie, so you don't want to watch that one. There's better ones out there.
Or watch it and tell us what you think.
Or it's the good one. I don't remember. But either way, it just puts this whole thing into perspective. Like I was saying, is that times the culture in one part of the country was much different than the other parts of the country.
We had these folk heroes that, like Wild Bill Hickok, and just like all these stories were, being made about them. It might not have been true, but like this is all they had for their own recorded history at the time. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it was just about just kind of living out there.
There's one other thing I did want to say, and I'm really sorry I'm going to disappoint you with this one. First off, cowboys are really just ranchers. That's the name of a rancher.
Yeah, like
not like
militia,
the outlaws
basically, right?
No, a rancher is somebody who works on a ranch.
Yeah,
works with cows, like a farmer.
Okay,
but like works with livestock.
Yeah.
So, like, the term cowboy doesn't really refer to an outlaw that we're thinking of.
Well, no. I'm not talking that cowboys were outlaws. I thought cowboys were, like, the good ones, and then the outlaws were the bad ones.
Yeah, but cowboys didn't go around with guns shooting people, is what I'm saying. They were just honest workers.
Okay. And then if someone was like, I'm going to mess your cow up, he's going to be like, I don't respect that very much. Draw.
Sure, if you wanted to go that route. I think most of them didn't have guns. Actually, a lot of towns didn't allow guns back in those days. You'd have to if you had guns, you either couldn't enter the town, or you'd have to submit them to the sheriff, who there's only like 30 people in town, so he's going to know an outsider.
What the heck is
with a
that?
gun.
What happened to freedom?
Well, people are trying to keep themselves safe in such a desolate environment.
So no guns.
Some of those towns,
a
lot of those towns didn't have guns.
Wow.
Guns were not allowed. So
I think that's a totally different topic on that.
I went off topic here.
Yeah.
So this is what's really going to hurt your soul, though.
Oh, no.
Cowboys didn't wear hats. I mean, they wore like random hats, but they didn't all walk around with Stetsons like we think about today.
That's lame.
I know. There's a picture. Actually, there's a picture of your boy, Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah.
Hickok.
Without Without a hat on.
Wearing a pancake hat, which is, think of a Stetson, right?
Yeah.
But you flatten the top, and you bring the brim all the way out here.
There you go. Okay.
So
that's a hat.
They wore different kinds of hats.
But not cowboy hats,
Yeah.
which I guess mean nothing.
Well, cowboy hat is called a Stetson.
So to me, it kind of sounds like it's not really the Wild West, it's just West.
It's literally just the West. There's not much wild about it. It's just the stories that have been passed down.
And a lot of that stuff was just kind of fabricated over time because, you know, how
Absolutely.
rumors are, rumors change.
Absolutely.
So we may never know.
We may never know.
We may never know.
Well, I think that's it.
I think we
right.
went over a whole lot there.
Cool. So, special thanks, as usual, to Johanna Drago. She helped us design the logo and the set for the show. The music you hear on the podcast is a song called As I Am by Josh Woodward. You can find a link to his website in the show notes.
Good listenings.
Definitely good listenings. You can also find us on Facebook,
Twitter,
Podbean.
Podbean.
Yup. What's our Twitter handle?
It is Big Spoon, Little Spoon?
No, it's at Big Little Spoon.
Oh, is it really at Big? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's not Big Little. Sorry, it's
We'll
at
confirm
Big,
that.
It's at Big Little Spoon.
Yeah.
That's also in the comments below.
Yeah.
In case we're totally wrong, the right answer is in the comments, in the notes section of the
Yes.
podcast. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, all those fun channels,
Yep.
and you can email us.
WeHateForks@gmail.com.
That's right.
Definitely email us any ideas that you have. We will put that in our little
Yeah.
separate area because right now we're using a lot of our ideas. But we're starting to build up our hat for fan submissions.
Yeah, so submit your ideas to us.
Yes.
We would love to do some fan submission ideas
Yes.
on the show. And is that it?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, friends.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.